Well, folks, this is Alistair McConaughey, and we are outside Stewart Street Police Station, where there is a small demo organised mainly by the Scottish Family Party and also the Glasgow Cabbie.
Well, we'll make a start in about 5 minutes. Waiting for 1 or 2 more people to arrive.
They're going to make a start in 5 minutes. This is a small demo which is against the
European Police Station.
the hate speech act that Hamza Yusuf is bringing in. And we are in Stewart Street in the Cowcaddens area of central Glasgow. Folks, tell me if this microphone is working. Good afternoon to Robert. I'm using a different microphone for this particular live feed. I'm hoping that the sound is going to be better. The picture looks quite good. Hello to Catherine. So it's ongoing people who are opposed to Hamza Yusuf's hate speech. How you doing? Who are opposed to Hamza Yusuf's hate speech act. "2012 NUFC says your sound is clear." That's good to know. Thank you. Who also says he should have been charged with hate speech and racism. Well, I think that's one of the concerns here, is that the law appears to be applied unfairly. And that's one of the bad things about the law, is that it's open to be applied selectively. Most laws are clear cut and they're not. There's no selective application, but the problem with this one is, of course, the selective application, because it all depends on what your point of view is as regards what may be abusive or what may be insulting or indeed what may be threatening. And there's all sorts of political considerations come into that. And that's one of the reasons why it's a bad law. Hey to Cat. Irene says he's already brought it in. It's criminalizing facts. Thank you. Helen says it's a good sound. Well, this directional mic hopefully will.
Another 2 minutes just while members set up their equipment.
2 minutes to countdown, according to the man on the mic. B. White says sounds looks good, video looks great. What's the protest today? It is the second anti-hate speech law protest to be organised under the name of the Glasgow Cabbie. The first one was at Holyrood. This one is outside Stewart Street Police Station in Glasgow. Violet says, stay strong, guys. Art Lover says, this pathetic law is about perception. When was perception ever policed? Well, it's policed now, unfortunately, isn't it? Hurt feelings is not a criminal act. And will the SNP get rid of Humza now? That's the big question. Every day in Scottish politics is mental, isn't it, really? For a country that's got a smaller population than the area of Greater Manchester. It seems that there's a drama every day in Scottish politics.
Welcome to the Glasgow Cabbie protest against the hate crime legislation.
Let me turn this around.
Outside Stewart Police Station, Stewart Street Police Station. It's somewhere that you won't have to visit at any future dates. So I'm sure we're here with grandparents, with brothers, with sisters, family members, working people, people seeking work, people from all sections of society and all different sorts of political opinions, political views, and you're very, very welcome to this protest. Big apologies from Steph Shaw, the Glasgow Cabbie, who can't be with us today. I hope he'll be with us on another occasion. My name is Leo Lanahan, and he's asked me to just to come here today's meeting and introduce the speakers. I'm a member of the Scottish Family Party, which is why you've seen so many of our flags and posters displayed around the place. So we'll be hearing later on from Pastor Arthur O'Malley. I'm sure that many of you have heard him speak before. We look forward to that. We'll be hearing from Rosemary Cameron, who is a social media blogging, activist, political campaigning. She's here to speak to us. We'll be hearing from Richard Lucas, who's hiding in the crowd a few minutes ago. So look forward to hearing from him. But first of all, and I've just remembered apologies also from Noel Fraser, who you'll be extremely surprised to hear is having a baby. But none of that legislation has been passed to stop people laughing about things like that. Noel Fraser is expecting, and so he can't be here today. So, and then we'll move on to introduce Craig Houston, who's a podcaster and social media speaker. And I'm sure you're going to have lots to say about the recently coming to law is the hate crime legislation. Please welcome Craig Houston. Step a little bit shaky. Well, hi there. For weeks a long time in London politics and as an eternity in Scottish politics, we started as a movement the 1st of April to rise against the regime and their hate crime laws that now has become an avalanche of desire to remove the most decrepit of governments we've seen since devolution. Since the launch of these ideological new laws, we've seen a 74-year-old woman arrested from a home and given 25 minutes away in a police van after one unsubstantiated complaint, while thousands who complained about Hamza Yusuf received nothing more than a scripted response or a standard email. The silent majority now say enough is enough. We may be weary after 17 years of non-stop arguing for independence. I'm tired after almost 2 decades of blaming Westminster, Brexit and Tories for the failings of Scotland. We'll find the energy to demand their removal. Even the Unionist nationalist have pulled out with this one-trick pony of a party who failed both. Those who desire independence know they are further away from it than at any other time since 2014. The Unionist has grown tired of constantly being described as a traitor by what remains of the SNP cult following. Again, enough is enough. Those who earn slightly higher than average have been penalised for doing so, and those who struggle scratch their heads when they're told 100,000 kids have been taken out of poverty. They wonder where this promised fairer society is. Well, they visit food banks, and they're led to believe that somehow it's because we are no longer part of the fantasy of a European Union, or somehow it's Westminster's fault. The game they chose to play was governing a devolved parliament, yet they chose to ignore the rules of devolution. The Scottish people are the referee in this game, and they will show you the red card. You decided to act like a single-party dictatorship while ignoring all who opposed you. Excuse me, my knees are a wee bit done today. I'm going to stand down. That's better. Today, you beg for your opponent's favour as you hang on to the power by your fingertips. The Scottish public will ultimately be your judge, and they will sentence you to oblivion. A new beginning is on the horizon. A new type of politics is happening. We have the power to achieve this. We just need to believe in ourselves as much as I believe in the Scottish electorate. We can enforce change and a better parliament. My nirvana is a two-step process. Step one is to destroy the SNP. This can be done by tactically voting in the next Westminster and Holyrood elections. This would financially bankrupt a party that's already morally bankrupt. And if we can decimate their seats by voting for a party who is best placed to beat them, and we do this in numbers, we could bury the SNP. I often hear excuses to tactical voting. Some claim that Labour or Tory will be no better than SNP. That fear can be nullified when you understand neither will spend a term ignoring everything other than independence and would be forced to improve Scotland with the devolved powers we have at our disposal. I often hear that it's time to vote for new or smaller parties, and I cannot dispute this. However, it's not going to destroy the SNP nor displace them. It's actually more likely to benefit them. But once step one has been achieved and the SNP are either finished or insignificant, we can then look to step two. Step two is when the smaller and newer parties, plus independents, can prepare for the following Scottish elections. And we can go to the electorate, convince them that the new political landscape and they should choose the person best suited to serve them and their community at Holyrood and ignore the colour of the rosette. We can convince them to choose the best candidate who can form a parliament full of those committed to do what's best for Scotland. This, my friends, may be my nirvana, but if enough share this dream of ending SNP and building a better Holyrood, then it can happen, and it will happen. This is my dream, but it can become all a reality. Scotland has often led the world. Let us lead again in a new landscape for politics. We need to break the model and design a new one, but we need the old school parties to break the SNP first and then modernise with us to sculpture a new type of politics for Scotland. Why shouldn't Bob, the electrical engineer from Bathgate, not be sharing a bench with Labour, Tory or Liberal Democrat in Holyrood? Why shouldn't Mary, the teacher from Battlefield, be considered along with a career politician as the next presiding officer in Holyrood? This can be a reality, but it won't be handed to us. And it must start by burying the SNP. We can build a better system for both the nationalists and the unionists. We deserve a better future for the whole of Scotland. We've been told that Scotland isn't welcoming towards a minority. We've been told that hate is rife and intolerance is normal. This is simply not true. The truth is that the most hated people by Scots are other Scots. Our society's been ripped apart by the SNP as they drove a wedge between families, friends, neighbours and colleagues, as they made us all decide if we were nationalist or unionist. After the referendum, they were unable to let it rest, as they needed the dream of the nationalists to survive, or they simply wouldn't have a purpose to survive as a party. The wounds should have started healing after 2014, but the SNP needed to keep pulling the plaster to prevent the wounds from healing for their own selfish purpose. It was their survival mode instinct. This alienated the unionist and disappointed the nationalist, because a decade later, they've neither found a way for a second referendum or convinced enough people in independence. Every day I see more nationalists giving up their independence dreams or giving up the SNP's chances of delivering them. For everyone in Scotland, enough is enough. Let's rid ourselves of those who dreamt up the hated hate bill. Let's rid ourselves from those who, but for the grace of God, would have burdened us with the named person scheme and the gender recognition bill, and who forced their ideology on our children via the national curriculum. Let's tell our family, friends and neighbours of our dream. Let's tell everyone that we want a better Scotland for everyone. Enough is enough. We deserve better. Let's tactically vote them into obscurity. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you very much, Craig. Thank you very much, Craig, for that overview of what's happening in Scottish politics, in Scottish society, what's happened over many years. So we're here to protest about the hate crime legislation in particular. That's what Steph called us together to do, and to seek a better politics a better approach to how we live as in society, to turn away from division. So our next speaker our next speaker is Richard Lucas. Richard Lucas is the leader and founder of the Scottish Family Party, who you many will see on his weekly broadcasts. And I'm delighted to welcome him here to speak to you this afternoon. Thank you, Richard Lucas.
Right, thanks very much. Thanks, Craig. If any of you haven't come across Craig's YouTube channel, Craig Houston, just search it up, find it. You need to watch. It's the best way of keeping up with the news, is listening to Craig's news plus analysis every day. So thanks for that. Now, according to Humza Yousaf, we're living in a Scotland that's been engulfed in a tidal wave of hatred. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't see it. I don't know where he lives. And I think the reason he thinks that is he thinks people are not too keen on him. And he assumes that this must be racism and Islamophobia or whatever. He doesn't realize it's just people don't like people who are not very good at their job. But what we're here to talk about is this dreadful new law. Now, we're here in front of the police station. Now, the poor old police are going to have to put this into practice. I mean, good luck to them, because it's such a terrible law that they're going to have a nightmare doing it. So we're not protesting against the police, but we're here because the Scottish government's put the police in an impossible situation, trying to put this thing into practice. I mean, the whole idea of hate crime, I just think the whole thing's a total nonsense. Because the idea is, if someone goes along and like beats an old lady up and steals her purse and runs away down the street, that's not a hate crime. That's not such a big deal. But if someone punches someone because they think they're gay, oh, that's got to be police top priority. Drop everything and get there. That's really what we need to be dealing with. I mean, is it not pretty basic? The law, the police should treat everyone the same. If someone attacks you, if someone attacks me, someone attacks anyone, doesn't matter what the reason is, the police should treat it all equally. But according to Humza Yousaf, according to every party in the Scottish Parliament, then that's not what we're supposed to be doing. The police should be treating different people differently. Totally mad. Right, which people are specially protected? Well, it's the ones according to the sacred protected characteristics. This idea that the government can decide who the special people are that get the special protection, and then there's just the bog standard normal people. Well, they can sort of fend for themselves a little bit. They're not really the police's priority. It's the special people they want to come along with. And it's just divisive. It's divisive, isn't it? Humza Yousaf thinks there's two sorts of people in the world. There's oppressors and oppressed. There's good people and bad people. That's his view of the world, and he wants the police to operate according to that view. Now, where do we start with this whole hate crime thing? Let's start with hate incidents. You heard of those? Because what the police do is if someone reports something to them and says, I think this was hatred, then the police will keep a record of it, record it as a hate incident. No investigation, no right of defense. It's just recorded as a hate incident, and there it is on your record. How do I know that? Because I've got one. So on the computer system in there is a record of my hate incident. I was the perpetrator of a hate incident. And what did I do? I said the children need a mum and a dad, ideally. That's what I said. And according to Police Scotland, that makes me the perpetrator of a hate incident. Now, not only do they keep it on their computer forevermore, they sent a copy of this hate report to my employer without even telling me. They sent a copy to my employer. How sinister is that? Maybe it's happened to you and you never knew it. How many hundreds of people might this have happened to in Scotland? Who knows? Maybe people, everything's going along well at work, then suddenly it seems like something's changed. Suddenly they're really wary of you. Maybe Police Scotland have sent a hate concern report to your boss, and you don't know anything about it. No right of defense. I think that is so sinister. It's got to stop. Then we're on to hate speech. Hate speech, this sort of censorship. I mean, if Humza Yousaf really wants a hate speech law, I would say, okay, fair enough, but let me decide what hate is. How about that, Humza? Is that a good deal? He'd say, no way, I want to decide. The SNP are going to decide what hate is. Not for you to decide, it's for us to decide. Well, I say that just shows what the problem is, isn't it? No one can decide what's hateful and what isn't. Forget the whole thing. I mean, in this law here, I'm waving around here. At the end, I'll ceremonially put it in a bin if there's one anywhere close. But it says, for the hate speech thing, you've got to be threatening or abusive, well, they're already illegal. But abusive includes insulting. Hamza Yousaf said himself, abusive includes insulting. So it made it illegal to be insulting. And that's a pretty low bar, isn't it? Now, Hamza Yousaf, even before this law, he's been an absolute expert at getting people nailed for being cheeky to him on Twitter. I think we're on 4 at the moment. 4 people in Scotland have been sent to court, and there's been police action, and they've been convicted for being a bit rude or offensive or whatever to Hamza Yousaf. Okay? Now, if you reported someone being offensive to you on Twitter, what do you think the chances the police would swing into action and they're being caught? Zero. But Hamza Yousaf and Police Scotland's like his personal police force. When he clicks his fingers, they swing into action, and if you've said something Hamza Yousaf doesn't like, you will be nailed. Now let's kind of, it just gets worse and worse. So that's the hate speech thing. Then we've got the misogyny law coming, which is just as well, it's even more bonkers. So instead of saying sexist crime is worse, they're saying sexist crime is worse as long as it's by a man against a woman. But if it's by a woman against a man, that doesn't matter. But it's sexist crime against a woman or a man who says is a woman, that also counts as misogyny. I mean, you couldn't make it up. It's utterly bizarre. And then our friend Hamza Yousaf takes to X a few days ago, and he, what you say? You don't say tweeted. What you do on X? He X'd. And so he put something on X, and he said, we mustn't divide society into people who are worthy of protection and people who are not. You think, hang on, this is the man who's introducing a law that protects women but doesn't protect men. And then he says, we can't divide society into ones who are protected and ones who are not. I mean, quite bizarre. I mean, the police, I'm a great supporter of the police. I mean, if there's a mad axeman at my door, well, I've phoned the police. I mean, the police have a really difficult job. They deal with some pretty obnoxious people, criminals, people high on drugs, all sorts of very difficult situations, accidents, terrible. The sort of thing that you and I would think, let's steer clear. The police have to go and deal with it. So I'm a great supporter of the police. And I feel sorry for them, having to face this politicization. I know a couple of police officers. You should hear what they say about the way that they get stuffed full of equality and diversity training. They're fed up of it. They're absolutely fed up of it. But if you want to keep your job, if you don't have any sort of chance of promotion, you've got to toe the line and go along with it. Now, last summer, I went along to the Edinburgh Pride event, and I just took a placard that said, children do best with their mum and dads, natural mother and father, statistically. It doesn't matter whether you agree with that or not. But I just stood with that at the Pride event, and I got pushed around a little bit. People were pretty threatening, abusive. At one point, someone like put a rope around my neck from behind. So, pushed and shoved. I wasn't like attacked, but I was pushed and shoved around. Next to me was the LGBT police group with their faces painted with rainbows, etc. And what did they do? I said to them, excuse me, can you see what's happening here? And one of them said, well, why don't you go away then? And that's the problem, is that the police have been politicized. And that's not by accident. That's exactly the plan of the SNP. They're trying to turn the police into an ideological force to promote their sort of message. Now, when it comes to hatred, I'm a Christian. So as a Christian, I've got a duty to do an awful lot of hating. And what I'm supposed to hate is evil. But I'm not supposed to hate people. I'm supposed to hope people, repent, turn away from things that they've done. I mean, I wouldn't wish on anyone to sort of face God's judgment. But hating is part of human nature, isn't it? People do things that wind us up. You hear people doing things. People oppose what you're doing. Then it's natural. Hate comes up within us. But Hamza Yousaf thinks you can cure it with a law. I mean, what planet is he on? What planet does he really think you can pass a law that's going to deal with hatred? Absolutely the opposite. If you give people special treatment, what happens? Well, it's a Sunday, so I thought I'd just base this next point on a little story from the Bible you probably know as well. Think about Joseph and his brothers. What did his dad do? His dad gave special treatment to Joseph. He gave him his coat of many colors, treated him really specially. So what did all the other brothers do? They got really annoyed with him, and they actually absolutely hated him, and they ended up trying to kill him. That's what happens when people are perceived to get special treatment, and that's exactly what the SNP are doing. They're trying to give special treatment to different groups in society. Now, we all remember, don't we, of course, Hamza's famous white, white, white speech in the Parliament. I mean, he's done more to stoke hatred and division by that speech than any number of people who are going to get prosecuted under this law, or the people who Humza's already got prosecuted for being rude to him on Twitter. Now, Anna Sawa gave a speech exactly the same, in a nicer tone of voice, but basically exactly the same. I would think, I mean, who's more dangerous? The person who says white, 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 sounding like he's full of hatred, or the person who gives the same message, sounding like he's a bit more reasonable and a nicer person? I don't know who's more dangerous, but certainly that ideology needs to go. I mean, Humza Yousaf, I mean, we're not far off from saying bye-bye to Humza Yousaf, but who's going to come next from the SNP? Probably someone who will just think exactly the same. This idea of the sacred protected characteristics, the special people that the police should protect more than other people, that idea is supported by all the parties in the parliament, supported by the UK Conservatives. That's not going to change anytime soon. So there's this rising tide of hatred that Humza Yousaf keeps talking about. Does it exist? It only exists in his imagination. It's in his imagination. It's not reality. What Humza Yousaf is actually facing is a rising tide of common sense, a rising tide of justice, and a rising tide of fairness. And I think that's why ultimately he's about to be swept away into history. Right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you very much. That's really, really helpful to have that overview of what the law means, its impact on us, its impact on society, on politics. It's really, really good to get that overview. Thank you all very much for being here today. Thanks for listening so attentively and quietly. But please feel free to participate in some way if you've got something you want to say. Let's hear from you. Let's hear you shout out and express your views. So we're moving on now to Rosemary Cameron, who is a social media activist. She's going to speak to us today about her experiences. Thank you.
Hello, Glasgow. Yay. My grandparents were decent working class Glaswegians. I was born in Paisley. Any Paisley buddies here? Yeah, great. And I was brought up to respect and trust the police and to believe that they would help me if I needed them. Now I fear a knock at the door because there's been a retweet. You've liked one of J.K. Rowling's posts. This gives me a third. That's not quite right. I've liked all of J.K. Rowling's posts. She single-handedly holds Humza's hate crime bill below the waterline. Not that Humza's noticed. He's still up in the bridge growing full steam ahead. He's not very good at reading the room, is he? Did he not learn as a kid that if you tell your pals, I'm no playing with yous anymore, you can't knock on their door the next day and expect them to come out and play with you? One of the first life lessons I learned growing up in Scotland was not to be a telltale. Not to be that kid who said, I'm telling the news. Looks like Humza Yousaf didn't learn that lesson either, because he's trying to turn Scotland into a nation of clives, and he's destroying trust in the police in the process, which I think is sad. I belong to one of the protected groups that Richard Lucas was just talking about under the new legislation due to my Christian faith, but it seems that some protected groups are more protected than others. And if you're young, white, straight, able-bodied, with no religious convictions, and you don't think you were born in the wrong body, you are not protected at all. That is unjust. I believe that we are all equal under God, and we should all be equal under the law. The SNP like to think that Scots are superior, better than our neighbours, more progressive. Well, if we're so wonderful, how come we need a hate crime bill? Where's this rising tide of hatred coming from? I'll tell you where it's coming from. You've only to look at the videos of a former First Minister spitting out the word Tory, or the current First Minister spitting out the word white, to know where the hate is coming from. They should take the planks out of their own eyes before they try to take the scales out of our eyes. Scotland has always had a problem with hate, but it's been deliberately stirred up by the SNP in recent years to further their political aims. There's only one antidote to hate, and it's not legislation. It's a change of heart. When all's said and done, 3 things remain: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Rosemary. That was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for speaking to us today. So we're moving on very quickly. You probably see moving into place is Pastor Arthur O'Malley, who's here to speak to us. I think many of you have heard him speak before, and we always enjoy hearing from him on these occasions. So without further ado, while he's getting mic'd up, it's Pastor Arthur O'Malley. Thank you.
Stand on the big height. Good to again be with you and to address you today. There's so many good speakers here, and thank you for all coming out. It's good when we stand up, when people who are righteous want to stand up for unrighteousness. And we hope our voice will go across the nation. There might not be many of us here, but the word travels, as we know, and through Craig's posts and many others, that the word travels further through our nation. And can I just say at the beginning here, you know, we thank God for law and order, and we thank God for the police. I had a police inspector in my congregation, he was one of my elders, and some good police were out in the streets on Wednesday, and I was talking to a policeman there, and, you know, a lovely guy, and he says, you know something, he's frustrated in the job. He says, when I started this job, I had one arm tied behind my back. He says, now I've got 2 arms tied behind my back. They feel frustrated. He says, I just want to come in, clock out. And what can happen is a lot of decent guys and girls that serve in the police force, and we need you. They take care of a lot of terrible things in life. Have to deal with rape and fraud and sexual filth and wickedness. They have to deal with murder incidents. They have to turn up and deal with all of that. So we applaud you and we thank you. And it's good that we're standing outside here and we recognise that. But unfortunately also, we have a government then that have to create the laws that these guys at the back of us are then called to enforce them. So it's a little bit, the laws come from government and they become the enforcers. When the good laws come, it's good for us when we're dealing with crime, when we're dealing to make Scotland a better place, when we're dealing with fairness and goodness. But when the laws come in now, and actually they're not good laws, and all of us would agree with that, and it's causing a lot of differences now, it's causing a lot of chaos, and the poor police are called to now have to come and to deal with that because that is their job. So my heart goes out to you, and I pray that there will be an uprising. One of the policemen said that to me, that the police need to stand up against the government and say, let us get on with our job, for we are here to take care of the people and to take care of the nation of Scotland. That is our ultimate job, not to be the enforcers for a government that we can all tell just now, guys, are very corrupt and they're actually attacking the very values of our nation. So therefore we do thank them, and we just want to again, I just want to applaud them, but I want to encourage them as well in the job that they're doing. Their job is to protect the people and not to become lackeys of this government. Amen. Now we've seen that in the named person scheme, didn't we? It was that big brother attitude in the super snoopers chapter, as it was called. And thank God it got flung out eventually, but all of Scotland, or the politicians, all agreed with it. And it really was intruding into the family's life. That your son or daughter could make a complaint against you, then they had a special person that they could speak to. And then, I mean, how terrible is that? An intrusion into the family life. That they would go and speak to someone and everything they would say would get recorded. I mean, my kids could really get fed up with me sometimes and say, see that dad of mine, blah, 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 blah. And then they would take that away and it could be recorded. It was obviously, thank goodness that got flung out. And then the recent one was the new hate crime laws that they've tried to bring in, or they have brought in. I pray and hope that it gets tossed out. They've just put it on the shelf just now. We need to raise our voice more and more. I'm sure the police would love to see to get rid of that, because it's creating their job. It's created them a mountain of work now. And how do you defend that? How do you charge that when somebody says something? Well, is he full of hate or is he not? Is it an observation of what it is? It was a recipe for disaster, and I pray that it will be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and it will bring down Humza Yusuf, and it looks like we could be in for that. So what we can see is to protect what people with disabilities, people with religion, people with sexual orientation, transgender identity. We have to protect all of these people. So effectively, anybody and your granny can make a complaint, as we just heard from Rosemary there, can make a complaint against you. And basically, you know what that's doing? It means we're all become little cliques, as been said. We're all now arguing with each other. We're moaning at each other. We're complaining against each other. This is a common tactic of divide and conquer. There's nothing new about this motto. It goes back hundreds of years. Divide and conquer. If you can look it up, and I'll just read you one of the definitions of it. It's a strategy that involves causing division among individuals to weaken them, making them easier to manipulate and to control by fostering disputes and arguments against the people. That's what it is. We'll start fighting against each other, so we've all got complaints. We're all diverse, aren't we? We're all different. We've all got a different DNA. We've all got different views and different things. So now we can start arguing and fighting with this man, this. We're all going to be fighting with our neighbours. They're deliberately doing this, friends, so that they can, if we fight amongst themselves, they can bring in all these laws to dominate us. We know that was the greatest persecutors or the infiltrators of that was the Nazi party, Hitler. He used that phenomenally. There was a man called Joseph Goebbels, propaganda machinery. He was part of the politicians. And he sat down and he deliberately demonized the Jews and many other people, I might add. We're seeing a lot of demonizing of the Jews today, and everybody says, that's absolutely terrible. It's not their land, it's the Palestinians' lands. Well, that is up for debate, friends. Everybody now is rising up in hatred. We see it in America. It happened in the 1930s. To the point was, then, let's get rid of them and exterminate them. So we had to build up an agenda against them. And this is what we're seeing today, isn't it, as well? Anybody will say anything against what they're trying to promote. They'll use hate speech against us, and now they come knocking on our door. That is very, very clear. How politics works. It was interesting as I was looking at some of this, the misleading information they used to promote their political cause. Do you remember a man called Peter Mandelson? I refuse to call him Lord Mandelson or Son Mandelson, but he was there in the Labour's camp, I might add. And he was nicknamed the Doctor of Spin. That's what they called him. And that was what that means is truth with a spin. Truth with a spin, my friend, is a lie. It has the appearance of truth, it has the appearance of goodness. But I want to tell you this, it's got an ulterior motive in the background. He was also known, and you can actually Google it from yourself, he was called the Prince of Darkness. Do you know that about Mr. Peter Mandelson, who was very much involved in our Tony Blair, our last one of those so-called good leaders that everybody was cheering about when they came into power. And I'm not got a problem with any of the political parties. Actually, I wish we would see some goodness and righteousness rising up in the ranks. But when we see here, they, again, was promoting a lot of stuff as well and giving the appearance of goodness until they get into power. And then we get fed up with the Labour as well. And then we've got SNP in. What are we going to do? Bring in the Labour again or bring in the Tories? I'm not here flying any colours for anyone. One thing I do like about the Scottish Family Party, they nail their colours to the wall. They're not hiding away what they believe. A man's a man and a woman's a woman. And I think most of us in Scotland would agree with that. We would say, yes, amen to that. Why should we stomach anything else that they want to bring in and say, no, we've got to recognise something else, which is totally against the culture of the majority of people. Thank God back in those Nazis days was a man called Martin Niemöller. He was a theologian, he was a Lutheran pastor. And he stood up, he seen the wickedness of Hitler, and he took a stand against them. And he actually said this, and I read it once when I was in one of these concentration camps that I visited. He says, they came from the communists. But I wasn't a communist, I didn't say anything about it. They came for the socialists, but I wasn't a socialist, so I never did anything about it. They came for the Jews, but hey, I wasn't a Jew, so I wasn't going to say anything about it. Why rock the boat? He says, then they came for me, but there was nobody to say anything against it. No, wickedness triumphs when good people say nothing and do nothing. Thank God the people of Scotland, that we are willing to stand up for what is good and what is right, to stand up for our rights, I might add. So we have to say again here this day, that we as the people of Scotland said enough is enough. We want Scotland back. We want our nation back. Our nation's changed. Is it just me that's noticed the change over, can we say, the last 40 years? But how quickly that change is coming. Our culture, our values have changed. I remember those days, and I remember talking to that policeman the other day. I remember the days when you could get a kick up the backside from a policeman when you stepped out of line. And then when you went home to see your mammy, you get another wee slap again across the head. I brought up in school when you got the bell. Yes, that was it. There was nothing bad about it. You stepped out of the line, you got the bell. Didn't kill me. I've not got marks and scars on my hand, but it was a deterrent. I was brought up the days when you see a mother getting a wee kid a good smack in the backside when she was outside, when the kid was screaming and playing out of line. Nothing wrong with that. Now it's demonised. You caught doing that, goodness sake, you're going to face the jail. And people will hate you for it. Where did all that come from? Because they deliberately drip-fed us. Propaganda machine. Joseph Goebbels. They deliberately do that. They demonise something. They drip-feed it into society where we're, oh, that's a terrible thing. Wasn't a terrible thing 30 years ago. Nobody actually complained about it. But thank God there was this man, he rose up and he spoke out. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, another pastor that stood up because he's seen the writing on the wall. He's seen the trajectory of where we were going. And they stood up and took a stand. And we know eventually Hitler took over, or was planning to take over the world with a new world order. Today, we have the globalists. And it's a new world order agenda. Our government are not ruling over us, friends. There's orders coming from above. The globalists. And now you're not called to be a Scottish citizen. You're a world citizen. I'm a global citizen. That's what they're saying today. We're all one. Sorry, we're not all one. I'm Scottish and I'm proud to be Scottish. And yes, I'm also British and I'm proud to be British. I would rather be involved with Britain than stuck under the Europeans. And that's where SNP were taking us. They wanted us to be part of Europe, to be led by Europe. I would rather be led by Britain than Europe. But more importantly, I would rather be led by God. All of us are looking for peace. We're looking for something that will bring peace to our land, that will bring prosperity to our land, that will bring goodness to our land. I don't want to be living worrying that my neighbour's going to break in and steal my goods, and my car's going to get smashed up and somebody's off my car. I don't want to be worrying about crime rising, and we're seeing now there's a breakdown in law and order. And yes, we're not necessarily going to blame the police for that. It's difficult. They've got a difficult job, and there's an explosion of it. Everybody's stealing and everything. And we're seeing the whole collapse of what we would say is valuable. Yes, as Craig says, Scotland once had a great history. We were known across the world as a Christian nation. Our foundation was on this word, on this book. Do you know there was a time in Parliament, I might say a long time ago, when the government of the day opened up with prayer and then they carried on with the business. Glasgow was once known, like Glasgow flourished by the preaching of the word and the praising of the Lord. That's when Britain and Scotland had its most blessed time, when we honoured God and we brought God into the nation. And this book is full of good values. Love your neighbour, take care of your neighbour, look after the poor. What is it we see now in the Scottish government are planning to do? We're now going to look at assisted suicide. Oh, assisted suicide. It's always done with a veneer, isn't it? You know, poor souls, they're suffering. Look at the agony. Do the decent thing. Put them out their misery. It's like walking out of a room, put a gun in someone's head and says, right, wait to get the side before you pull the trigger. We're demonising these old people, making them feel unworthy. Worked all their lives. Some of them maybe fought for our nation, and then they get to an age where they're getting a wee bit doo-wally. We'll just put them out their misery. Do you know that's what Hitler did as well? He went into the mental hospitals and says, well, they're not good, are they really? Let's just clear out the mental hospitals, shoot them. Anybody who may have been disabled, well, you're not good to the system. Let's take them out, because it's going to cost money to look after them. Why take? See, when you treat people like animals, when you get rid of God, then we become no better than a chicken or a hare. Do you know what I'm saying? There's nothing to be grounded in. Friends, can I tell you right now, and all of you, maybe a lot of you out there are guilty of as well, we don't need God. Well, I want to tell you, this is alternative what we're getting now. Yeah, let's throw God out the country. Shut our churches. We don't need that book
See this book, in fact, this is something they want to demonise. This book that brings goodness, love your neighbours, take care of them, take care of the poor, feed the hungry, look after one another, treat each other as special because we were created in the image of God. Can I tell you this? There's something unique about the human race. We're unique. We have emotions. We have a conscience. You ever seen a lion have a conscience? It's just about to eat the wee zebra, and all of a sudden it stops and goes, "Oh, that's terrible." We are better than animals, but we're reduced to animals with laws that's going to turn us against one another. Friends, can I just say, let's rise up. Let's make Scotland great again. And it's not a political party, I might add, that's going to make Scotland great again. It's bringing God back into our communities, back into our schools. When the Lord's Prayer is said in the schools, we've outlawed all of that, haven't we? Let's stop preaching filth and immorality, and let's start preaching the word of God again. I want to tell you this, Scotland will be great again. Scotland will be great again when we bring God back into this land and open up our hearts to living God again. That is the answer. God is the answer. But thank you again. It's a great opportunity to speak. But listen, we've all got a common enemy. All of us have got a common enemy. The Prince of Darkness. Yes, Peter Mandelson got the name for that because he spun truth. I am fed up with lies. I'm fed up. This government's going to say they're going to promise us a moon. Don't worry, when we come in, the NHS, the railways will be flowing. We'll make life better for you. I remembered a friend, he was so caught up in politics. We Ivor, and when Labour again, he was dancing in the streets. He was always bottles of champagne. He was dancing for 2 days. And I says, Ivor, do you know something? I'll tell you this, they're not going to solve the problem. I met Ivor a year later. He was demoralised. He demoralised. That was the new Labour, was not the Labour that he thought was going to fix the problems. Listen, guys, nobody's going to fix the problems other than God himself. Now, God bless you all. May the peace of God be with you, and may the love of God touch your hearts today. Amen.
Thank you very much, Arthur. It would be great if we could finish with a photo, if you were able to gather behind, or close in here, so do a photo facing this way, rather than with the police station behind. Okay, if you're willing to be in a photo, if you're closing, and so we'll take a photo before we go. Okay, just squeeze in best you can. Go. So it's like going to a wedding now. This is the big group shot at wedding. We have Phil, photographer. I don't know if Phil got his business cards with him. We'll be having that now. Okay. Well, thanks very much, everyone. Really appreciate you coming out today. I think hitting the streets makes a difference. The pictures will go far and wide on social media. People see it, and it all adds to the momentum. And let's hope we get some good news in the weeks to come. You know what I mean? Nice to see you.
it's on YouTube at the moment, so it'll be ending in 2 or 3 minutes. So you can just remove the thing from it. It's YouTube.com/UK. So, folks, that would lasted for an hour. So we're just bringing this to an end. Thank you very much for all the comments. We were streaming across Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and we had 252. We've got 252 watching at the moment. So please do give YouTube a like, give it a thumbs up, and please do give us a follow. If you're on Facebook, please give us a like and a share. And if you're on Twitter, now X, give us a repost, please, folks. Thank you to Blue Bear and to Art Lover and to Jeffrey and to James and to Scotland Scorpion and What Does This Button Do and Muttley and everybody else who sent in their comments. And we're just going to bring this to an end just now. But folks, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye now.